Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience Rocket Mortgage Classic. I thought it was open. Apparently it's classic. DraftKings picks and preview. Joining me to break this all down, we're going to bring him in right away because he's got something to tell you. Now out on his own, it is Rick Gehman from DFSOnDemand.com. Rick, tell everyone about DFSOnDemand.com and what you're doing.
Yeah, that's right. So, Pat, what you kind of alluded to is this is now my full-time job. So, DFS On Demand, heavily focused on the PGA Tour and golf tools will be, I say it's me. It's literally just me. I'll be pumping a ton of more content and updating our tools moving forward. So, super excited about it. Super stoked to really dive in. This is, day like 6 of it being full-time. So, should be a lot of fun.
And it's good because I get access to you in the mornings now if we want to do a show.
That's right. Yeah, you hit me up, a couple minutes in advance. Yeah, I'm available. I'm hanging out here.
See, it works out perfectly. It's not like we have to schedule 2 weeks out. It's like, that time doesn't work. This time doesn't work. I'm actually mainly just doing this. I mean, I want to give you as much press as possible because, hey, you're coming on the show. That's awesome. And your work is top quality, much better than my work. I'm not going to lie to you. But I saw someone sent me along a comment yesterday that people said we didn't get to the golf quick enough. So maybe we won't even talk about golf today. How's your day going?
Oh, so far so good. Early here on the West Coast,
Oh, yeah.
One cup of coffee in, this is real analysis that the people are looking for. I can feel it.
Yeah, I know. I basically, anytime anyone tells me like how I should be doing my show, I try to just really lean into the thing they hate the most. Like, do you work out after you wake up in the morning? Do you take the dog for a walk? What's your morning routine like?
Yeah, so hit the gym, 6:15 class every morning. I'm in there.
That's rough.
And
man.
then what's that?
That's rough. Where do you get the energy at 6:15 in the morning?
You got to get it done. If you wait until after work, you're exhausted. You come up with a million excuses. I'd rather eat dinner. You wake up, you roll out of bed, you get to the gym, you get it over with.
Yeah, see, I'm more of a mid-afternoon. I guess my schedule flexibility allows me for that. I can get in early. I can do some filming, do some work. But, we got all about it. Exporting time, editing time, all that fun stuff. That takes time. You can just kind of set that, forget it, and it has to do its thing. And you got like an hour and a half to kill. Gym works out perfectly.
That is perfect timing. Yeah, I had someone tell me I should draw my winners out of a hat live on the show. And I was like, you can have your own show and for an hour long, just draw names out of the hat. You can do it any way you want. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah, you could just be Powerball, the show. Just be drawing winners. I do have winners for people if they want to get to it. They can become winners if they want to. If you want to get into a draw for 20 DK bucks, all you need to do is smash the like button for the episode, although you've probably downvoted it already. But hey, switch that to a like. Leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section and give me your 2 favorite plays in the $6,000 range this week for the Rocket Mortgage Classic, only because this field is so terrible that finding 2 6K guys might be kind of tough. And we'll talk to Rick a little bit about roster construction so far and what he's seeing. I might have a hot take or two about this week because Rick, I've been running, how you're Rick run good? I'm Pat running really badly right now.
So what do you do when Pat runs bad? You just do something completely opposite and hope it turns around?
Well, I don't know if I should stick to what I've been doing because obviously that hasn't been working. But as Raza has pointed out, it's Raza or Leone has pointed out multiple times. Maybe it's Trippy. I completely forget. I talk to a lot of people. I'm a big deal, Rick, if you didn't know. I talk to many people. They're all great, but it's kind of like, if I have a bad month, does that mean that, obviously the picks are wrong, but is my process now wrong? Because it's 4 weeks. It'd be like after Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in baseball being like, I'm blowing it up. I don't know what to do. But like it's 4 slates. And in golf, I feel like that kind of goes over the head of a lot of people. And I'm trying not to fall into that trap too.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Even if you look at the whole season, there's if you're only playing the main slate, it's like 40 different opportunities. The only sport that is obviously smaller in sample size is the NFL, where you'll hear these guys, you can go like 3 years and be a losing player for 3 years. But I don't know if that necessarily means your process is wrong, especially in something as volatile as the PGA. So yeah, it's at least good that you are reflecting on whether it is your process or your picks, because I think that's step one that people don't do.
Yeah, well, I know the picks are bad. That I can absolutely confirm. The process, I don't know. I've had success with this process in the past. And I guess another thing to look into as well is that I'm only playing, basically, I play my tournament, the Pat Mayo Experience Open. If you want to play in that this week, it's $15 to enter. It's rake free. It's the best tournament on DraftKings. I don't know why anyone wouldn't play it. We didn't fill it last week, so it got smaller. Didn't fill it. It's a rake-free event, people. You should be playing in this. How to find it? We can no longer put the link on YouTube because that will get us banned. So if you just go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/thepme, you can find it in the description of this video or yesterday's show with Jeff Feinberg, or in the audio podcast description, you can find it there as well. Just one click, boom, you're in. It's $15. You can enter up to 3 times. It's rake-free. I'm dead money basically every single week, so there's that. So it's like even freer. It's less than rake. It's more than rake free. It's rake free plus I'm dead money. A dead $45 of it every single week. So it's absolutely the best tournament. Let's fill that up this week. Then we can get a really nice one going as we lead up to the Open Championship. Hopefully we can get over 100K guaranteed again. That would be amazing. So if we don't fill it up in the meantime, that's not going to happen. So we want that coming through. But almost to my point, like I'm playing a lot of these just giant GPPs, Rick. Like I guess my tournament selection could be a lot better for what I want to do, but I thoroughly enjoy just making like go to Fantasy National, make my 20 lineups, pick the players that I want, and check them all into the $5, the $3 20 max, and I kind of go on my way. I'll pick and choose like, oh, I'll play that one in the 44 and almost play it as a single entry. I feel like that's where I'm really getting myself, but at the same time, you're not going to churn a consistent profit playing in the giant $5. Like I can never be down on that tournament in my lifetime, basically, by playing my 20 lineups a week. It would take like 25 years for me to catch up based on what I've won in that in the past. And maybe just this year, not having that really big score is just kind of get me down in the dumps a little bit.
Yeah, and that's very similar way to how I treat the birdie, which is that 20 max, because I love the 20 max format where, yeah, you win it once, which I did last year at the Masters. I'm free rolling forever here, right? Like I can convince myself of that. I do think that it's interesting how you choose, and this I think this kind of came up on Twitter a little bit because I kind of do the same thing. Get your 20 lineups and then decide which ones you're going to put in the 5, the 44, whatever those type, those single entry or the way you're going to treat them as single entries are, and how to choose those lineups. Quite frankly, I pretty much do it randomly, which I can't imagine is the most optimal way, but I don't know what a better way is.
Well, it's funny you say that because I've had more success of my 20 lineups just like going in and being like, I'll pick lineup number 11 and throw it in rather than being like, oh, that one, that's the good lineup right there. Yeah. And then I put it in. And then like on Thursday afternoon, I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm bad at this anyway. Why would I go with the most confidence I had in a lineup? Of course, that one's going to be in dead last.
Right. Yeah. Introduce a little anarchy into your lineups and just randomly pick it. I kind of do the same thing. I dig it.
Yeah, it's tough. Like even trying to get the like whittling down the 20 into 3 to enter into the 3 max. Like I still struggle with that. Like, do I go 3 different lineups? Do I try to like really pound down on one player? Because I have a pretty concentrated core as it is. The guys are obviously going to overlap, but do I do it that? Like when I did it at the U.S. Open, like I had CT Pan in 2 of the 3 lineups. The rest of the lineups were like pretty good, but having CT Pan, it's not going to work out for you.
Yeah, no, and actually, what I've done at times is you and I kind of have the same mindset of being with that very concentrated core, and if we're either going to like win everything in 1 week or we're going to lose everything in 1 week. So what I've actually done this in your contest is I have my core lineup. That's the core lineup that I use to create 20 lineups off of it, but I'll stick the same core lineup in your contest 3 times and just like, hey, I turn it into a $45 entry. If I go out and win the thing, I'm going to take first, second, and third. If I take 3 min cashes, I'm going to, double my money or whatever it is, which makes me feel a little bit better about the decision-making process. It eases the burden a little, but I certainly don't know if it's the best way.
In that sort of format, like, would you play a more quote unquote cash lineup if you're going to play like a single entry, or do you say screw it? Like, let's just pick randomly one.
Yeah, I mean, I say screw it because I'm not trying to make, have two times my money back, or in some of these big GPPs, 1.5 times my money back. I'm trying to win first. So I'm still going to treat it as, hey, let me get some high upside. Let me enter this where I think you can actually win it.
See, I like that. I think that because I'm not going to start playing cash games. It's just not something that I'm going to end up doing. I play this for fun. I want to win big, or I'm just going to lose. I like how you phrase it. You're either going to win it all or lose it all. And I guess, you know what? I am okay with that. So I'm going to continue with my process for now. I'll reassess at the end of the year and see how poorly I do from here on out. Maybe I'll spike a big one and all of a sudden, hey, Pat's having a winning year. It's excellent news.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you win this week, you're going to be like, oh, my process is so great. My picks are so awesome. And it's all good now. So winning cures everything.
All right. So let's talk about the course a little bit. Detroit Golf Club. It's looking, the GSCCA report came out, whatever it is, the course report that they have on PGA Tour Media. And there's been a lot of debate about like what the greens are here at the course. It looks like they're almost exactly the same as last week at the Travelers. They're like POA with a bit of bent in them. They call them like bluegrass greens. So if people were wondering what the grass type was, that's what it at least is listed as on the official report. It's 7,340 yards, par 72. We got a full complement of par fives. The field is pretty weak. Top 70 it ties, 156 players. So the fullest of all fields that you're going to see all year, the maximum that we're going to have in terms of any one tournament. What are you searching for key stats, knowing this is the first year at the course? Because I really whittled it down more than I normally do. And maybe that's something I can adjust in my process, that maybe I've been trying to go too deep into doing everything. Like I go to fantasynational.com and before, like I have like my previous years loaded, but anytime I get to a new course or like a US Open or something like that where I don't have a history, I guess this year's US Open was a little bit different because we had Pebble Beach, but I kind of adjusted it, tweaked it probably a bit too much, to be perfectly honest with you, that I wanted to really hit down on my core stats that I really want to see what pop. Then I run it through the mixed condition model and see what happens. But like tee to green, approach, eagles gained, birdies are better, or sorry, opportunities gained, and par fives gained are the ones that I went with this week.
Yep, a kind of similar way. And it's funny you mentioned, what do we usually do on US Opens? I think new courses are actually harder because for the most part, obviously there's some differences here, but US Opens tend to play similarly. You miss the fairway, you're in trouble. It's obviously not exactly the same, but they can set them up in a similar manner. A brand new course is a complete wild card. We're doing the Google Earth trying to figure out, hey, are these fairways tree lined? Are they this? Are they that? What kind of surfaces are we playing on? So I have kind of brought it back down to a very basic set of key stats. I think it's going to be a second shot course, with it being a traditional setup with the 4 par fives. I did look at par 5 scoring or par 5 birdie or better or par 5s gained, whatever stat works best for you, just for a way to be able to weigh the par 5s a little bit more, and then continue to rely on birdie or better because the early reports are this thing could turn into a little bit of a birdie fest with how many par 5s there are. It might take a really low number to get there. So I'm sticking with it's going to end up being pretty much the best golfers on the face of the earth, and then we're going to have to figure out a way to construct them into a lineup.
So what do we do when we see that the winning score might fall somewhere between like minus 18 and minus 24? We could have a full-on Sony Open on our hands midway through the season. We don't normally get that until we get to like the John Deere Classic. Like, are there certain types of players that you do go to target? Like, I don't know. I mean, obviously targeting birdies or better is something that you can look at right away. And if we go to birdies or better gained over the past 24 rounds, you got Hideki, Dustin Johnson, Gary Woodland. Big surprise there. That's like Aaron Wise, Sam Burns, Rory Sabatini, Luke List, Kevin Streelman, Sung Jae, Seb Straka, Sung Kang, Ali Hama, Austin Cook, Charlie Hoffman, like those types of guys. Like, do you want players that, in your mind at least, and maybe now that you're doing this full time, you can actually dig in to see if this is actual reality? But I've always wondered, like, if Brendan Grace is ever going to win a tournament, it's probably going to fall between like minus 5 and minus 12. Like that's sort of his sweet spot. I think when he won Heritage, it was minus 12. It could have been minus 14. I don't quite remember all that well. But like there's other guys that are more typically suited to win a minus 20, a minus 24. And I feel like that puts more like the web.com guys back into the mix because when you play on the web.com tour, that's more of like a birdie fest every single week. That resort course players like the Cameron Champs of the world, they tend to be able to go out and make huge numbers. But once you ratchet up the difficulty just a little, they're not as good anymore. Are there certain guys that you would either put into a mix or take out of a mix because of that core setup?
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. Figuring out who those guys are is the next step of this process, but you kind of nailed the profile of someone that I would want to play. It's there's a real thing in golf. If you go out and talk to these guys, like once you start getting a couple under par, some guys get a little bit complacent, like, oh, okay, I'm 2-3 under, like I'm cool here. This is a good number. It's hard to continue to go low. It's what they said about Tiger for all those years. Is like he's not afraid to continue to throw darts and go at pins when he's 4, 5, 6 under par and try to get to 10 under par, right? There's just kind of like a different mindset for these types of players, and some are better at it than others. Web.com is a great example because like there's been events where I think Sam Saunders shot like a 60 and like for 2 rounds of a tournament and barely won the thing, right? Those are incredible birdie fests. But I also look at guys like Jason Kokrak, who he's more solid. He's just probably not going to make 7, 8, 9 birdies in a round, but he's just not going to make a lot of bogeys in a round either. It's not going to be good for something that turns into a birdie fest, and it's probably not going to be great for DraftKings scoring outside of winning the tournament, because we need, if it's going to be 20 under, and you're not making, 20, 25, 28 birdies throughout this thing, like you're probably in big trouble when it comes to your DK lineups too.
So if we go above the $10,000 range, Dustin Johnson is the best player in this field. He is the highest price player in this field. He's $12,000. It's $800 more than Ricky Fowler. It's $1,100 more than Gary Woodland coming off the U.S. Open win. And it's almost $2,000 more than Hideki Matsuyama, who comes in at 10-2. Those are the four guys above the $10,000 barrier. And when I'm looking at the early ownership calculations, it looks like Ricky is going to come in at the lowest ownership. I thought people might overlook Hideki, but that price break is just too strong that he might come in as the highest owned player on the slate. But the hot take that I had earlier is if I play 20 lineups, I'm highly considering just playing Dustin in all 20.
I don't disagree. So 12,000 is basically the max that we can see on DraftKings, even though, and Pat, you might know this better than I do. I think DJ's like 5 or 6 to 1 to win this event, right?
Something He's like 6 to 1 as of yesterday. I haven't checked today.
Okay, so basically, when a guy gets to 6 to 1, because the DK salary so correlate to Vegas odds, you would normally see his price should probably be higher than 12,000. It should probably be like 12.4, 12.5. But DK kind of puts a little bit of a cap on it, and even getting to 12,000 is something that we haven't seen in a while. So I actually think he should be more expensive. So I think there is a little bit of a value there. He is, even at his worst, he's one of the best players in the field, and there's like a real chance he just goes out and boat races everybody and wins this thing by half a dozen strokes.
Yeah. Do you find that there is a difference between someone like Dustin Johnson and someone like Brooks Koepka in this spot once they travel to these kind of knockoff events with the weaker fields? Although last week the Travelers actually had a pretty good field, just all the good players didn't play all that well, outside of Paul Casey, who just kills that tournament every single year. But in terms of Dustin, like we've seen him go to these spots and win these tournaments at 6 to 1 and blow the field out. So I have a lot more confidence in DJ in a tournament like this than I would with Brooks.
Yeah, I mean, Brooks has basically told us that, right? Like he has kind of told us he is major hunting and he's going to show up. And it's hard to tell if he cares at a U.S. Open or at a British Open because he always has the same look on his face. But he has almost just straight up told us he's out here to rack up majors. And Dustin's not really that way. Dustin just kind of shows up, does his thing, bombs it, hits his wedge to a couple feet. And if he makes his putts, which he didn't last week. If he makes his putts, he'll be in contention.
Yeah, that's also the big thing too. He lost, the third most strokes of any tournament of his career at the U.S. Open putting. Like that's just not typical of Dustin Johnson. And I wanted to get you to weigh in on this a little bit too, because I talked a bit about it with Feinberg yesterday. I wrote it up in my column. If people want to check it out on DKPlaybook.com, like that just seems high variance. Like he was top 10 tee to green at the U.S. Open and finished outside the top 25, which is kind of shocking for Dustin Johnson. He putts average that week. He's inside the top 10. So at a tournament like this, if he continues to go with that tee to green game, I think he can really lap the field here. But in terms of Justin Thomas, because we're seeing this with him too, that the tee to green game has just been outstanding and the dude can't putt anymore. When we thought about his wrist injury, we thought about it from a driving and approach perspective that, will he be able to get it out of the rough? How is his touch around the green going to be? Is he going to be able to drive the ball? But all that came back right away. Even when he struggled at Memorial, he was still pretty good, at least the first round tee to green. Then he was just bad in the second round at all facets of the game. He was just rusty. But ever since we've seen him since, in Hamilton, last week, at the U.S. Open, the tee to green has been really good. Dude can't make a putt. Do you think the wrist injury has hurt his putting?
This is really shocking. When you go and dig into the numbers, it's really tough. I think it's possible. I would say it is probably more variance than anything.
Okay.
Although I think that there might be, let's call it like 25%, without having any idea what his wrist injury, I mean, only he is going to know that. If with it being such a feel type area of the green, if he's got, a little numbness still in his wrist, if there's still something kind of going on there, he might not have the same feel with a putter or with like wedges around the green that he previously had. And now he's trying to work through it. That is 1000% speculation, Pat. So I really just think that there's probably more variance than not here, but I wouldn't be super surprised if there was some type of just different feel that he has after the U.S. Open and after the wrist injury. And these guys are creatures of habit where a different feel might screw him up for a bit.
So that's what I was trying to parse out with Feinberg. And whether this is just a bad stretch of putting for him and it's complete variance, chalk it up to randomness. Because again, we're still dealing with such a limited sample. It's 4 starts for him on tour, and 3 of the past 3 starts, because he played 4 weeks in a row. 1 was on bent, then the next 3 were on like weird POA greens. Maybe he wasn't reading those properly. You get him back on bent grass, you put him on Bermuda, all of a sudden problem solved. I don't know. But the big thing is, like, I've seen him as low as 40-1 for the Open Championship. I don't know if he's going to win the Open Championship, but that feels like an auto bet.
Yeah, I mean, there's value in that number. You're right. I don't know if he's going to win it, but he's way better than I'm sure his peers that are also in the 40-1 range. I don't know if you have it up, but I can imagine the other names around him. And Justin Thomas is a class golfer compared to them.
All right, it looks like people jumped on that 40 number because now I'm seeing a 33 across all the sites. But he's the same number as Louis, the same number as Stenson, the same number as Patrick Cantlay, Jason Day, and he's way behind guys like Fowler and Fleetwood and Rahm and Scott and Xander Schauffele.
Yeah, which, just before that wrist injury, I mean, remember, to start the season, literally before the Honda, he was scorching earth. He was the best player on the planet. His stats were through the roof, and we didn't know if he could keep that going, but it seemed like there wasn't going to be anything to stop him unless he was going to smash his club up against a tree in like the first round of the Honda Classic. And of course, that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, and then he continued to try to play through it. And I think the Masters thing, coming T12 at the Masters, really threw us all off guard. Yeah. Be like, oh yeah, he's probably all right. He played well at the Masters. But I guess
he came back, he played the Masters, and he was fine. And then that was clearly not the case, because then he didn't even play the PGA, right? He sat it out.
Yeah, it was strange. So I'm Team Dustin here. He's probably the only guy above 10K that I'm going to use this week. Do you have any feels for the Woodlands and the Fowlers and the Hidekis? Like, listen, they're all probably pretty good plays. Ricky rates out the worst, but the other 3 are inside my top 4 in actual overall stat rankings. And when you just look at the names, that would correlate pretty well. Like, oh yeah, those guys are good. Of course they're in the top. Woodland is really the interesting one here, because if you had told me he didn't win the US Open, I feel like I'd be all over him. Maybe not at this price point, but coming off a major win, doing the talk show circuit, like, this is all brand new for Gary Woodland. And it's hard to project any sort of, oh, he's beat out. Oh, this is a new stage of his career. Maybe he doesn't take it as seriously. Maybe he takes it more seriously. We're not actually going to know that. But it feels like the track record of first-time major winners coming off that major is not so hot.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we talk about this a lot. It's like, oh, the guy was the best player on the planet the last time he teed it up. Let's avoid him this week. It's so counterintuitive, but I get it at the same time, right? I mean, you could argue, okay, he's doing the talk shows. He's not focused, or he's just got a lot going on. He hasn't been practicing. Or you could say, wow, he's doing the talk shows. He's probably out of his comfort zone. When he steps back onto a golf course, he's back into his world. This is where he can kind of settle in again. I have no idea. Trying to figure it out for these guys is going to be impossible. What I will say is he kills par 5s, he kills par 4s, he makes a ton of birdies. He's $10,900. If you're going to play anybody else over 10,000, Gary Woodland's certainly my guy.
You would go Woodland over Fowler and Hideki?
Yeah, I'd probably rank them DJ, Woodland. The other 2 are close. I'd probably go Fowler, Hideki.
Yeah, so I think I might just say Dustin Johnson and go with it. And the problem is, if you use Dustin Johnson, this 9K level is not real accessible if you want your team to make a whole lot of sense at the bottom. So it works out well, because I don't love a whole lot of the 9K guys. You got Snedeker, Reevy coming off the win, Ryan Moore, who I like, Patrick Reed, Kevin Kisner, Billy Horschel. Like, I could be good not playing any of those guys, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, they're all kind of, you can make a case definitely for all of them, but you can also just say like, the guys in the next level below are probably just as good.
I tend to agree. And this is what's interesting in these weaker field events, where now you have this mental block where we've been paying probably at least $1,000 cheaper for all of these guys all season long. And now they show up here in Detroit and we've got to pay mid 9s or high 9s for them. And it's like, holy crap, this field is super weak. Am I really going to pay, $9,500 for Ryan Moore, who I like? I do like Ryan Moore. He's a good driver of the golf ball. He faded a little bit at the end of the Travelers, but he was in contention for a while. He made a ton of birdies. I like him, but I think it is an area that I will probably just skip over. There's some better names, and I don't think we talked about this, Pat. Brand new golf course. I actually think that opens up the field a bit more. I think it's going to bring in a lot of these guys with, without any course history for anybody, with no good feels. They don't have a lot of nuances. of say the greens because they've been playing here every year for a decade. I think it opens up the field a lot. I think you can get into the the lower ends of the salary range like we normally wouldn't want to.
So, of guys in that range, like, do you think you would go back to Shez? Fun fact about Shez Reavie, and I laughed at it when I saw it. I was on Fantasy National. If people want to become a member of Fantasy National right now, by the way, if you get a monthly membership, it takes you through the British Open. So, probably a good time to do it. And the simulator has been really fire over the past, I think it's 5 of the past 6 weeks. They had Shez rated as the 5th best play in the field last week, just per running simulations over and over, and then said that his odds should have been 25-1 instead of 60-1. And I looked at it, I was like, that's stupid. I'm not doing that. And then now I sit here and all of a sudden Shez Reavie's $9,700.
Yeah, stupid computers. He is really interesting, to be quite honest. And if we're going to try to project what being a winner, and he's not a first time winner, but first time in a decade, he might as well be, is going to do to a guy right after. Like if you saw him on the 18th green, I'm not even sure he knew he won, right? Like he was so even keel. He might just show up this week and be like, okay, back to playing golf. No big deal. He does continue to rate out really well. I like to use good drive percent. And I don't know if you saw any of this, Pat, but was there I thought when I was looking at the virtual map and doing a little bit of the tour, some of these fairways look a bit tree lined. Did you see that on your side?
I did, but I didn't know if that was an old map or a new map. That it looks like what they've done is there's a north course and a south course at Detroit Golf Club, and they've combined 2 of the courses to make this PGA event.
Yeah. So and you're absolutely right. We're great at speculating this week. I don't have any idea, but it looked a little tree line to me. And when we get to some of those courses where, if you miss the fairway, you're in prison in some cases, or you have to be on the right side of the fairway, I like to use good drive percentage. Ches shows up. I think he's like number 1 or number 2 in the field there. He destroys par 4s. He's going to be a great ball striker. So outside of the fact that he just won last week, there's really nothing to knock about him.
Yeah, in terms of the actual stats that I'm looking at, he rates out 5th in this field over the past 36 rounds behind DJ Woodland, Matsuyama, and Kevin Streelman, of all people. But it's funny, when we talk about, he plays really well, he's been playing really well on par 5s because he's been making a lot of putts. But it's this weird key par 4 range. There are 10 par 4s on this course, and only 2 of them measure between 400 and 450 yards. There's 4 over 450 yards and 4 under 400 yards. In both those ranges, he's 3rd in the field over the past 36 rounds and scoring on those holes.
Yeah, so he's definitely got the skill set that we would expect to translate to golf course X, which is basically what we're looking at this week. So between him, Moore, and then I don't know where else you'd go in this range. I always have a little thing for Billy Horschel because he makes a ton of cuts, and now he's probably one of the better players in the field, and he's the lowest end of this 9,000. But I'm not sure where else I'd fire a dart in here.
So there's 3 guys that I do have some interest in. One is Snedeker, only because he has a really good record on Donald Ross courses. He's won Wyndham, he's won the Tour Championship at Eastlake, and he's actually played really well with his irons last week. The driving is the thing that will really get him. He can take himself out of a tournament. But he had been riding a hot putter all the way until last week. He only came T43, but he gained almost 5 strokes in approach. And you know that he's going to be good around the greens. That's never an issue with Brandt Snedeker. Ryan Moore almost falls into that same camp. He can't putt right now, but the ball striking has been really good. He plays these shorter par 4s really well, has a great track record at Wyndham, and in the 2 starts he's ever had at Eastlake, he's come 2nd and he's come 3rd. So there's something about this Donald Ross design that he likes a little bit. And the other one is Kevin Kisner, whose irons are suddenly coming back to earth, coming back to fruition just a little bit. The short game had gone away, the putting had gone away, but he gained strokes off the tee last week. He gained strokes on approach, gained almost 6 strokes putting. You can't count on that, but if the ball striking is going to be there for him, I do count on him to hit a lot of fairways. So he's someone interesting that, he's won already this year at a WGC, and he just kind of tailed off a little bit. Maybe he's hitting back on the upswing right now.
Yeah, I do think Kisner's interesting. He kind of just trucks along. He has a great skill set when he's firing on all cylinders, which is kind of what you alluded to, Pat, as he's coming back to it. So you could probably convince me of him. I think it's a lot about roster. Could you, I guess you could start your lineups here and avoid the top 4 guys. I'm not sure I'd be willing to do it, but I guess you could.
Maybe instead of playing 100% DJ, I'll commit to playing 50% DJ and building DJ lineups, and then take him out of my build. I'll go to Fantasy National and just take him off the list, and then start all my teams maybe with Snedeker and have Snedeker, Kisner, Moore, and build that way. When I actually hit my big score at Heritage a year ago, that's actually what I did. I had none of the highest price players. I just built around a core of 9K and 8K guys.
And I like that. I tend to do that more often. It's usually in deeper fields where you have a bunch of those guys. You have Tony Finau in there. You have a handful of guys that I think can actually win this thing. I'm not sure that's the case this week, but it's close. I don't think I could kill you for it.
Let's see. If I played Dustin Johnson and Kevin Kisner, I'd have $7,200 remaining in the rest of my lineups. And I mean, we're not down in that range yet, but we'll see how rough it gets in a hurry. So this 8K range is filled with guys that are kind of overpriced, like Neiman. Love Neiman. I don't know if he should be $8,900. That seems a bit extreme. Sung Jae is 88, who's just rode a hot putter last week, but the ball striking really hasn't been there for him as of late. Bubba Streelman, who's fire. Rory Sabatini, who's been kind of fire. Hovland, Kokrak coming off like the worst round in the history of golf. Wise, Tway, Duffner, Harmon, and that's it. I like the guys at the bottom here. I like Tway, I like Duffner, and I like Harmon.
Yeah, let's talk about Neiman for a second. Is he going to be super popular? Like, I have a feeling that we finally saw the fifth place finish last week. This guy was everybody's darling a year ago when he had 6 starts under his belt. I'm a little worried at what his ownership checks in this week.
I got him right now at 13% ownership, but he's been good the past 4 weeks. He's gained on off the tee approach and around the green in 3 consecutive weeks, and he finally put together a decent putting week, almost 4 strokes gained. That's strokes gained putting in 2 of his past 3 events. So maybe it's flipping for him just a little bit, but feels like it goes sideways for him too. Like it's too extreme a price for me to pay at $8,900, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, it's like last week was his first. I think it was like his first top 10 in a year. It's been a really bad run for him since we all sat there and said, "Oh my God, if he had enough rounds to qualify, he'd be ranked first in every statistical category. He's the next Tiger." Like that's literally the things we were saying a year ago. Obviously, golf is a little bit more difficult than that. I'm probably a little bit more bullish on him than you are. He played well tee to green last week. Notoriously bad putter, but I think he gained over 3 strokes last week. If he can continue to keep it rolling, he definitely has the skill set to pop off and find his way near the top of the leaderboard. But he is not a safe option by any stretch of the imagination.
So it does seem like most people are avoiding that $9,000 area, at least according to early projections from fantasynational.com. If you remember, you can just click on ownership percentage and see the live ownerships. But like I got guys like Snedeker 6%, Reed 6%, Kisner 6%. Then I drop into this area, it's like Streelman 20%, Sabatini 15%, Neiman 13%, Im 11%, Kokrak still 10%, Hovland 12%, Aaron Wise 11%, Kevin Tway 11%, Duffner 15%, Brian Harmon 10%. It does seem like people are really targeting this area.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting, right? I mean, I guess it makes sense. I like the 9s more than I like the 8s, quite frankly. There's only a handful of guys that even move the needle for me. I did think it's interesting in this field to see Bubba at 8,700. I know it's been a really bad run for him. I know that he's not doing a lot of things well, but to see him at 8,700, which is, $100 more than Kevin Streelman in this field, I thought that was surprising. I don't know if I'll get to rostering him, but that's a lot of disrespect for Bubba.
Yeah, since the Masters, miscut 63rd, miscut 54th for Bubba Watson. He missed the cut at the 2 majors and the other 2 events, Travelers and RBC. He hasn't finished better than T54. This is also the 4th week in a row he's going to be playing as well.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that. I wonder if Bubba should take a rest and go chill out for a little bit and figure his shit out. But it is an interesting number. And then you get down to guys like, okay, so Kokrak. Anybody going to play Kokrak after? I'd argue this is the time to play him after one of the most historically worst putting rounds of his career.
It's not even but it's not like the putting was super terrible, obviously. He lost 7.5. He lost 7 strokes putting in 1 round, which is almost impossible. But almost. He showed that if you just miss every 5-footer on the board, you're going to rack up bogeys and lose a lot of strokes putting. But it's not like his irons were really good. Dude couldn't chip like normal. Like the only thing he did well was drive the ball. If this turns into a driving fest, you could really gain a lot of leverage and say, you know what? I think that driving is going to be the predominant stat this week and play like Dustin and Bubba and Kokrak and that type of guy and avoid all sort of the overall good tee to green players. But I just don't think that's how this works out. I think that, like you mentioned, this is a second shot golf course. If the score is going to be -22, that driving is important, obviously, but if your irons aren't dialed in, you got no chance.
Yeah, and how do you feel? I think you were talking on a really great point there, where especially on a course that is a little bit unknown, and sometimes we do this with weather waves. just stacking a bunch of, hey, here's my really good drivers in case that ends up being the skill set that is needed to win this week, or hey, here's a bunch of ball strikers, or here's a bunch of whatever. I don't do that as much as I think others do. Is that something that you mess with from an actual statistics side of it?
I try to align my lineups that way, but then I usually just get too frustrated because I don't make my teams until like, Wednesday night. I'm like, I got to go to bed. I'm going to make my teams and go to bed. Maybe I should put some more time into that. Maybe that's the part that I'm struggling with. I talk about this shit for like 10 hours a week, and then it gets down to making the lineups. I'm like, ugh, I'm over it.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about these names any longer.
But I think I do more of a T stack, like weather draw. And usually I'll do the opposite as well. Like if I play an AM, PM stack for 5 lineups, I'll play 2 that are PM, AM, just in case, I'm wrong about a ton of stuff. So why wouldn't I be wrong about that? So I'll try to have it both ways. But I do think Raza is the one that does the statistical stacks the most, I think, of anyone.
And I think it makes sense. And whether it's even whether it's choosing one stat or just finding players that tend to have the same profile, whether it's, hey, they're tee to green and they can't putt, or they're long hitters, or whatever it is, I think that's probably a solid way to go if you have the time to build the lineups.
All right, so in that 8K range, who are the 3 that you like that you can see using? Like I said, for me, it's probably Duffner, probably my favorite, Tway, and good God, am I really going to play Brian Herman again? Are you going to play the Streelman chalk, 20% Streelman?
No, I think that's bad chalk. Man, I'm kind of a sucker for Neiman, quite honestly. I do like Duffner, and I do like Tway. So I think we're on the same page for most of them, but I'll fall for Neiman, I think.
Yeah, so Harmon and Duffner score really well on these shorter par 4s, and Tway scores really well on the longer par 4s and just absolutely crushes par 5s.
Yeah, he destroys them, and nice to see him come to life a little bit last week. I think he finished 5th, so there's a little bit to like there for Tway.
In the 7K range, KH Lee is the first one that I see at the top of my list here at $7,900, coming off like a pretty decent week. Another player that scores really well on these shorter par 4s. Would you pay for him, or would you just kind of let everything trickle down? Because I like going back to Charlie Hoffman coming off a week where he screwed everybody.
So do I. I usually am when there's blood on the streets, buy property type of guy. So no more blood on the streets than Charlie Hoffman last week. I'm fine with going back to him. We haven't seen him play that poorly at most points in his career, so there's no reason to expect that continues. I actually do like KH Lee a little bit. I think he's interesting when it gets to some of these weaker field events, and we've seen his name pop up on leaderboards and play well recently. And I mean, outside of, I don't know, Sung Kang, who I actually, Sung Kang is like 4 starts removed from being a winner on the PGA Tour. Plays well on par 5s, plays well enough on par 3s. He's someone that you could get my investment on. But this is this is already a weak field. This is a pretty weak section of it.
List is in here, and I bet List to win like I normally do because I love Luke List. But he's been really bad with his irons. Basically, since Heritage, he's lost like immense amount. Like the ball striking, obviously, off the tee is going to be really good like it normally is. But it's almost like looking at Bubba's page right now, like minus. Like the putting has been all right. He's gained strokes putting in 3 consecutive events, and the irons abandoned him. How does that even happen for Luke List?
That was what we were waiting for. We were like, okay, when he putts, he's going to win. He finally does it. And of course, he doesn't have the rest of the game there.
Yeah, see, that's never any fun. In terms of Kang and Hoffman, they're probably the 2 best ones. Like Charlie's ball striking was really good last week. He just couldn't putt. And almost the same with Kang. That's 2 consecutive weeks. He lost 6 strokes putting at Memorial. He lost 2.5 last week. Gained off the tee, gained on approaches, MDF'd last week. Yep. I believe he MDF'd Sung Kang.
He did.
I could see him doing okay here. I thought Griot MDF too, and just turned out I stopped paying attention to him after he broke my heart after round 2.
I'm pretty sure he birdied 18 to make the secondary cut. I faded him, and I was keeping an eye on it, and I'm like, oh, thank God he's on the outside of this. He's not going to play the 4th round, and I'm pretty sure he birdied 17 or 18 coming in to get into Sunday.
Yeah, the only other one, like Donald Ross specialist Nick Watney is up here, another player who he's won at Aramnik, I think that's how you pronounce it. Played really well at Wyndham, and I think he's had some decent runs at the Tour Championship 10 years ago when he was actually good. But he's 8th, 22nd, miscut 30th. Like he's playing all right at the moment, and it's all ball striking. It's not putting, obviously, but he's been doing a bit better, at least in terms of treading water on the greens on these slower POA surfaces. So maybe they ratchet up the greens and they're super quick, and then all of a sudden he sucks. But I don't mind Nick Watney in this mid range because there's not a whole lot down here, to tell you the truth. Malnati is like the other one.
Yeah, and I actually let me know what you think about this. I'm trying to pull up his stats here. Matt Wolf at 7,500 played like obviously the kid just turned pro. He's gonna go through some growing pains, but he played. So he did MDF. So he played three rounds last week. So he played the two par fives now 6 times. He birdied all 6 of them. So he was 6 under on those 6 holes and like 8 over on the other 48. If you double the number of par fives that he gets this week, I wonder if he can eat those alive and just kind of hold on for the rest of them. I don't know the answer to that. And then the other guy down here is actually Wyndham Clark. He's pretty far down at 7,100, coming off a 15th place finish last week. And he's another guy who destroys the par fives. Again, I think it's going to be such an important stat this week. If you steal an eagle or two, not only is that going to help your standing in the tournament, but they're so heavily weighted on DraftKings that you can almost do whatever you want after that if you grab one.
Max Homa was the other one I was looking at. I was on Homa last week, and dude just couldn't chip or putt, but the approach was really good, and that's been something since he's won Wells Fargo. Plus 4.6, plus 1.7, 0.6, plus 4.3, plus 3. That if he's going to continue to be this hot with his irons, he's another longer hitter that can score really well on the par fives. That I like him, and Spawn and Connors are just two that my eye gets gravitated towards, and I don't really know what to do with either one of them.
Connor shows up every single week on my model because he's so good tee to green. So I couldn't really fault you there. I don't know. I don't have much of a stance on JJ Spawn. He's probably someone I haven't played in a year or two. What do you got? Convince me on him. Let's talk about him.
On JJ, it just seems like he's turned his season around a little bit, at least from a middling perspective. Like, what do you really expect JJ Spawn to do? That he's going to tread water. You hope to get one of these hot putting weeks, and boom, he spikes and finishes inside the top 5 or something like that. That's been what we've seen from him in his career. And if we go through what he's been doing recently, he's made 5 of his past 6 cuts, no finish better than T28. He's coming off a 30th at the Travelers, lost a bunch of strokes putting, but did gain 5.5 through his irons. And it does seem historically where he has played well. I know he had a nice run at the Farmers one year, but the Desert Classic, these swing season events where you're going to have to shoot like -18, -19 in order to win. And if he can start filling it up, at least I know that when I look at opportunities gained, he's sticking it close to the hole for birdie opportunities. If he starts converting them, then all of a sudden we're in business. And if you're correct that, let's say, hitting fairways is going to be super duper important here because it's either going to be tree lined or the rough has grown up in one of those circumstances that we don't know. He's someone that hits a lot of fairways. He doesn't get himself into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I do like that about him. And you're right, his irons were hot fire last week. So that's pretty interesting. What is he, 70? Where's he at? 71?
74. He's the same price as
74.
my main man, C. Woo! Kim.
There it is. I knew we couldn't go a whole show without getting a Siwoo mention.
Siwoo is doing something weird this year. He's not playing first or last. He missed the cut on the number last week. That is so very anti-Siwoo Kim. Like, he should be like 13 over.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. We want first or we want last, Siwoo. Get your stuff together.
Yeah, and hey, he's someone else who's won a Donald Ross course before. That it just amongst these guys that he's priced down here with, like the Steels, the Hadleys, although Roberto Diaz played really well last week.
He did.
But Siwoo is just a better player than all these guys. You never know if good Siwoo or bad Siwoo is going to show up. But if good Siwoo shows up in this field, he could definitely win.
Yeah, and I've actually it's funny you mentioned that. I've had success in these types of fields where the bottom of the pricing pool ends up being like either like a lot of journeymen who stink or people who are up and coming, young guys. And then you kind of get like some established pros in there. Like sometimes there's like a Harold Varner the third in there or someone like that you're like, wait a minute, like he's not the greatest player on the earth, but he's better than these other guys. He's competed on the PGA Tour. He's been in front of these crowds before. And I've had good success finding those guys in these areas. So like that's what kind of comes to mind when you mention Siwoo. It's like definitely has a better resume than the guys around him in this type of field.
Vaughn Taylor is another one that I wanted to shout out in the 7K region. He's just been playing pretty consistently all year. Chalky guys from in the 7K level, like in this bottom part, it seems like people are playing hometown guy Brian Stewart. Sam Burns is going to be pretty popular, and Troy Merritt and Cameron Tringali, Alex Prue, and that's it in terms of the over 5% owned guys. Like Munoz is right there. He fills it up in a hurry, and everyone loved him last week. He played poorly. It might be another week, like you said, just to blood on the streets. Might as well go back to Munoz.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear that those are the names that are garnering over 5%. I don't know who else I'd rather roster down here. I mean, it's pretty ugly. I do like Diaz, and he was on the we got him on the PGA Tour Live last week, didn't we? He was we saw a lot of his shots. He played well.
It's funny who they choose to show and who they choose not to show.
It's unbelievable. They're throwing darts.
Yeah, well, I mean, they could do worse. Like he's never had as good of a ball striking week as he did last week, and he came 8th. Like if I look at his tee to green for his career, he gained 10.4 strokes tee to green last week. Before that, his previous best tee to green performance in any tournament was 0.5 strokes gained tee to green. So he may have just got hot.
Did we just see his ceiling tournament?
We may have, unless he's a completely new player all of a sudden, which would come out of nowhere, kind of thing.
Play on PGA Tour once and turn your career around.
Yeah, I don't know what really to do with him. Like it's like Zach Schuster. Is that how you pronounce his name?
I works for me. I have no idea how to pronounce his name.
I'm probably not going back to him either.
No, I'm like positive we just saw his ceiling tournament. A guy who I'm stunned he finished second, quite honestly. When he went like bogey double, I thought he was going to choke it away and finish T19 or something like that. I'm actually pretty impressed he finished second, but that is like the absolute ceiling for him. We will never hear his name again.
6K guys, got any for me?
Actually, I do.
Okay, well, let's hear it. Is it Hank Lebioda?
Not yet. No, I do like Hank, but not this week. How about Sepp Straka?
You're speaking my language.
There we go. Okay. So tee to green. Let me see if I can find this here. Tee to green was pretty good last week. Hold on. Okay. So he missed the cut. Here's the thing. He missed the cut last week, and I think he finished like 9th in the field in tee to green, which is, when you think about it, or maybe not 19th, he finished 14th, which you think about it, that's a cumulative stat. So he gained more tee to green in 2 rounds than almost the entire field did in 4. He gained more rounds tee to green than Keegan did, who finished second. Clearly the problem with him is going to be the putter. He lost 6 strokes putting last week in only 2 rounds, obviously terrible, but like, he has some significant upside to getting like again, one hot putter or one neutral putter gets him well in contention in a field like this. He's I think he's what, $6,900 right now. Yeah.
So I like Straka. It's funny. He's a fun guy to bet on his first round leader or play him in a first round 3-ball because he's always like an underdog, but he cannot put together. I can pull it up if people seem to overlook this, but if you just click on like the round numbers next to the players' names on Fantasy National, you get a round by round breakdown of, good round or just round by round, that he follows up a good round with a bad round and a bad round with a good round, like almost always. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, consistency is not Straka's strong suit from what I can tell.
Yeah, because I was on him at the Canadian Open. He was like lingering for a while. Then he lost 3.2 strokes in 1 round tee to green in the final round. I was like, oh, thanks, Seb. Thanks for showing up.
Right. This is why you're $6,900 and 200 to 1 to win this thing.
I don't know if the field is going to update, but I saw Taylor Gooch actually got into the field, and I don't know if he's going to end up making the DraftKings system. I haven't received that email yet, but it's Tuesday morning. Maybe that's going to happen. I would play the Gooch. When we talk about like iron play, he's awesome.
Yeah, when you go to second shot courses, which is basically any course, but ones that really require that second shot, he always pops up there. I do assume we're going to get an email today. He's going to be added to the field. I saw he was added earlier as well.
So the only other one, like if it rates out like iron play is key, if the dude could just make a fucking putt, Sean Stepney would be great.
Ooh, that's interesting. All right, how about this one? Couple tidbits for you for Andrew Landry. He is $6,800. Has not played well since he won last year.
Played well last week. Played well last week.
Okay, here's what I like about him. He didn't put 4 rounds together, but the 2 rounds that he did, I think it was Thursday, he was first in the field in strokes gained tee to green, and Saturday he was like 7th in the field in strokes gained tee to green. So 2 awesome rounds. 2 rounds that if you told me that, oh, he had these 2 rounds, I'd be like, wow, he probably like top 10 this thing or won it. Obviously did not happen, but there are so few guys in this price range that even have the ceiling of being able to be the best guy in the field tee to green 1 round of the tournament, let alone 2 rounds of the tournament. I think that that's something to say about Landry, who can at least pop off and he can at least find a ceiling better than a lot of these other guys can.
All right. I am 100% on board with that. If I'm going to play a bunch of DJ, I might need to go down to this range. Landry, he's on the list. So Straka, Stephanie, Landry. I think I would like Gooch the best if he ends up in the field. Now I'm just trying to dig into Carlos Ortiz a little bit. Oh, yeah, that's not good. So no Carlos Ortiz.
don't dig too deep on Carlos.
Yeah. I had to make sure I could cross him off my list, and now I can. Like essentially it. The only thing that he scores particularly, I'm going to set my date range to last 100 rounds. And I'm going to see who makes more eagles versus the field than anyone else. Because it does seem like 3 of these par 5s are gettable. Now, we're not going to know that until the players show up. 2 seem like they're entirely reachable. The other one has like a pond in front of it, so it's going to take some extra distance in order to get there. So you can kind of parse that out a little bit. But over the
Is that like the 650-yard one?
No. It's the like 570 something, whatever it is. Like you're going to have to fly. Yeah, like you're not going to get to the 600 whatever 1 and 2. That's just not going to happen. But you could get to this 1 and 2 if you don't put it into the drink first. So the best players in the field in Eagles gained over the past 100 rounds. Sam Burns is the best. Fowler, List, Adam Long. I feel like Adam Long shows up once every 5 weeks and actually has a decent performance. He was 21st last week. He's made 4 of his past 5 cuts too.
He's a PGA Tour winner, Pat. He's going to show up every 5 weeks. Of course he is.
When you win at 600 to 1, this is what happens. But maybe I'm not as anti Adam Long as I may have thought. He's $6,900 too. Bubba, Matt Jones, T Dunks, Tower Duncan, Poston, Hama, Gary Woodland, Dylon Fratelli are the top 10 in terms of Eagles gained over that long range. Do you have any thoughts on Matt Jones? Because I saw actually Matt Jones on Twitter talking about Matt Jones.
Wow, that's awesome. No, I honestly, I really don't have much opinion one way or another on Matt Jones.
He's one of those guys that gains all of his strokes off the tee and loses them all through approach. He's the anti-Sean Stephanie.
Oh, great. Yeah, exactly the type of player we're looking for this week.
Yeah, throw him into that bucket with Bubba and List and Kokrak, and hey, you got a team that's going to miss the cut going.
I was going to say you're going to have an 0 for 6 come Friday evening.
All right, so let's whittle this down to the guys that we especially like. If you had to pick 3 guys that you wanted to make like cornerstones this week, it's going to be DJ for me, Charlie Hoffman for me, probably Jason Duffner.
Okay, I like those. I would probably go with DJ. I'm pretty interested in Ryan Moore again. I think I'm going to go back to that. And then I'll go further down the list, and I'll go super deep. I'll take Andrew Landry. I really, really like the spot for it this week.
All right, so I'm going to be in on Landry from down in that range. What's my player pool up to now? My player pool is up to 17 players. That's probably add maybe one more. When you play 20 lineups, how many guys? Because I know you use the cascading, and if I'm really going to commit to one of these very top end guys, my lineups are actually going to kind of mirror that because I'll have a bunch of DJ or a bunch of this, basically the same 3 to 4 guys in that 9K area, and the rest might get evenly distributed down the list outside of the really core guys that I like. But if I play Wolf, I'll probably have 2 of 20 lineups with Wolf, or if I play Landry, 2 of 20 lineups with Landry instead of making 8 with Landry and then just avoiding everyone else in the 6s.
Yeah, so my player pool with the core cascade, so I'll have basically 6 guys in almost every lineup. Then I'll sprinkle in. So it ends up being like 20 to 24 players, but 6 of them are in like 80% of the lineups.
Okay, I like it. And people can learn more about the cascading core at dfsondemand.com.
Yep, and there's some videos. The Rick Run Good YouTube channel has a video from a couple weeks ago when Cantlay won the Memorial, and then from last year's Masters where I used it as well. All
right, cool. Rick Run Good YouTube channel. You can find Rick on there, and at DFS on demand on Twitter, and at www. You don't remember the dot, dfsondemand.com. Check out Rick's site. Rick, thanks for being on today.
Yeah, much appreciated, Pat. Well, I'm sure we'll talk soon. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, of course. Now that you got all this time on your hands, we'll be talking golf all the time. I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the PME. If you're looking for the Listeners League link, it's on Facebook and in the description of the podcast, not on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, you got to do an extra 10 seconds of work. I know it's tough. I know. But hey, that's how you get into the league. It's $15 to enter, 3 max entry. The best tournament on DraftKings. It is free, so you might want to play in that one. Become a member at fantasynational.com right now for all the tools, all the stats. I've been talking about the lineup generator, the customizable model, the mixed condition model, the tournament simulator. All the tools are available on the monthly membership, which takes you through the British Open. So best to get acclimated with the system right now, learn how to use it. By the time those millionaire makers come around, boom, you're ready to go. Maybe win $1 million, probably not, but you might win. If you play in it, you might win. Who knows? Anyway, I'm Pat Mayo. You can check out the cheat sheet up on dkplaybook.com, just like all the podcasts and all the videos. They're up there as well. Pat Mayo, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!